Music's on.
Why is there's just never enough time. They can listen to the music for a while. Ah. Hold on. All right. Hello, my friends. You are listening to the Bad Blonde Radio Show on News Talk KEYS 1440 AM and 98.7 FM. And today is a very good day, my friends. Why that is we're going to be talking about the history of Lincoln Motor Cars and its founder, Henry Leland, who's a pretty cool guy. So that's why it's a good day for us on the show. Chad, why is it a good day for you in general? He's wearing sunglasses, guys. That's how you know somebody may have had a good night as well.
I don't know why today is a good day for me.
You don't?
No.
Well, shoot. I'm sorry. Oh, that's too bad. That's too bad.
Although it's a nice day out.
It's beautiful. Yesterday was gorgeous. The day before was just a little bit cold, but now we are just smooth, sailing into very smooth, calm weathers. Now, anybody listening, perhaps it might be a good day for you. In that case, text it to me at 882-5397. I want to hear it. And if it's PG-13, you know I'll say it on the radio. Yeah. Now, also, why it's a good day for me, around 1 o'clock, I'm going to be hopping on a party bus to Port Ave to celebrate my good friend Kirsten Lay's birthday. I don't know if she's listening. She's not really a car girl, but if she is, happy birthday, Kirsten. It was a while back. It was a few days ago.
Happy belated birthday.
Happy belated birthday. But I can't wait, man. You put me on a party bus where I don't have any cares in the world, where somebody's going to take me home after going to Port A, and we are going to get ridiculous. Chad, are you excited to talk about Lincoln?
Somewhat.
What do you mean somewhat?
I am, definitely.
Well, that was not what you just talked to. That is the opposite of what you said. Are you not excited to talk about Lincoln?
I am excited to.
So I'm super excited. For one, I kind of have a man crush on Henry Leland. Henry Leland is the gentleman. He is the man, the myth, the legend that created Lincoln. Now, he didn't just create Lincoln. This is the guy that created both of America's most competitive luxury vehicle lines, and that is Cadillac and Lincoln. All right. I don't know. Is anybody else as excited about this as I am?
Me.
Like, this is like something hard to contain. I did make when I first made, it was about a year ago, I made a video on the Bad Blonde YouTube covering the Lincoln Continental Mark Ii Cartier edition, and I hit upon a bit of that history, and I absolutely, like, from that point on, I was like, man, Henry Leland, love that guy. Almost named one of my cats Leland after him. Okay. I digress. Let me get back to what we're talking about. Okay, so Henry Leland's kind of a super interesting guy. He started his career in firearms manufacturing, worked at Colt, had a stint at Colt. He did engineering supplying for manufacturer that would become Oldsmobile. And also, one of my favorite facts, and I was just sharing this with Greg Smith because it's one of my favorite little odd factoids out of the car world, is that Henry Leland also created the electric Barber clippers. We all men definitely benefit from that.
I don't cut my own hair.
Well, okay, but you're lucky, or you could be running around using the Flowbee, all right?
Yeah.
So anyways, okay, so Henry Leland was born in Vermont. He is the youngest of 8, and I can personally vouch that the youngest are always the smartest. Just kidding, kind of. He was a quick learner, and he applied himself to learning engineering and precision It's too early.
Precision manufacturing.
Yes, in machining at the Brown and Sharp plant in Rhode Island. So it's kind of easy to hop from Vermont to Rhode Island, frankly. He would go on, like I already said, to work in the firearms industry with a brief stint working at Colt, which I think is pretty darn cool. Now, most importantly about these years for Henry Leland, was that he is gaining experience and expertise in toolmaking, meteorology, and manufacturing. Okay, now all of this would strengthen his philosophy of interchangeability, which we would all benefit, because when he jumped into the car industry, and I'm already getting ahead of myself, but I've already started, so I'm going to continue. He basically was one of the first in the automotive manufacturing of having interchangeability between parts. And Chad, as a mechanic, you can vouch that is pretty darn important, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say in the manufacturing process, yes.
Yeah.
And also it helped in the repair process.
That's what I'm saying.
I think he learned a lot of that interchangeability and also very extreme tolerances from making guns with Colt.
Right.
And it's also was interesting, I think, out of how much the New England firearm industry ended up having a big impact on the automotive industry.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
After the war.
That's pretty darn cool. I didn't even think about that, but it's absolutely, in those early days, all of it was kind of linked a little bit, right?
Yeah, I was reading that
Go ahead.
Leland and a bunch of the other guys back in the day were all the disciples. That's kind of where they got the interchangeability idea from, was from Eli Whitney and Whitney's cotton gin.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, we're really going back.
Was easily repaired.
Yeah.
With interchangeable parts, and really changed the economic direction of the South.
Change the game.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Nobody, you know, it'd be neat to have a show that was just involved in like machines and how they ripple affect certain machines and inventions and how they ripple affected across multiple disciplines. Now, back to Leland's history. All right. So all the knowledge he gained, he would also start applying it to manufacturing engines, which he was the supplier to Ransom E. Olds Motor Vehicle Company, which would eventually become known as the Oldsmobile, which we are all familiar with. I love the name Ransom, just going to throw that out there. That's
a weird name.
I love
he
it.
actually came to Ransom's attention because of his fame in making gears, and Ransom Olds at the time had a vehicle that was known for not shifting very well. So for the engine, he brought in he brought old Leland in. And said, "Oh, well, let me make you a transmission." And then Ransom said, and he made a really good transmission for him that shifted well, and Ransom was like, "Well, let me make me a one-cylinder engine."
That's super cool. I did not know that he caught Ransom's attention for his already well-known ability. That's so interesting. That is so interesting. You know who else made gears to start with? Or, you know, who was good at making gears was Andre Citroën of Citroën. Anyways, I digress, and I'm not allowed to do that because I got a lot of stuff I want to talk about with Lincoln and Henry Leland. Okay, so also there was no way I wasn't going to be able to throw this fact in here. During his time supplying engines to the Olds Motor Vehicle Company, he developed a unique toy train called the Leland Detroit Monorail, and you know darn well I YouTubed that and watched a couple of videos of the monorail. Did you do that?
No.
Okay, well it is a monorail. Like, it's not the most. It was entertaining to me, but it probably would. It's not like in the whole collector of miniature trains. It's probably not, other than the oddity that it was made by Henry Leland. It's not the most interesting, for sure. Okay, back to that before I talk about that forever and ever. So let's paint the picture of the time, and this what I'm about to talk about is going to be basically the seed that would be the animosity and the vendetta between Henry Leland and Henry Ford. Dun, dun, dun. I know. All right, so it's 1902, and the Henry Ford Company is going bust. And that's not, that was a common thing. Like, I don't remember the exact number, but it was darn near like 10 businesses of Henry Ford's went defunct. And it was just kind of despite himself, he actually succeeded. Like, he was not a good businessman.
Or, I mean, you got to take chances.
And he took multiple. Like, I literally think it was 13 is the number of businesses that he made before he struck gold with the model. I know
he tried one that was the Detroit Motor Company.
Yeah. Bust.
And I believe that's when Leland stepped in on that one.
Oh, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Ford had gotten into a tiff with his investors, and he busted out, and basically there was no money anyway. And one of Ford's financial backers was like, darn it, Ford. And he sent in Leland to take a look at everything. He went in the factory. They wanted him to basically, like, they were liquidating it. They wanted him to appraise the plant and equipment for liquidation. And instead of that, Leland actually, and this is where I just love this part of the story. It's a twist. He persuades the finance guys to let him start manufacturing his own vehicle using his own reliable single-cylinder engine that he had been supplying to Oldsmobile. And they were like, well, okay, that sounds a lot easier than selling all this off. And thus, that was the creation of Cadillac Automobile. Right?
Ooh.
I know, right? I just, that story is too much. I love it. And so, interesting thing, fun fact, was Cadillac was actually named after Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac, who is the gentleman who founded Detroit, Michigan. And the Cadillac crest is based on his coat of arms.
That is cool.
I know, right? Isn't it? So, he's created Cadillac, and
Antoine Lamet de la Mothe Cadillac.
Yeah.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah, just like exactly how you say it.
Antoine
Antoine de la. So an interesting, we're not going to talk about Cadillac that long, but I do want to hit on an important development of his while he was with Cadillac, while he created Cadillac, because he would soon sell it. Look, I'll tell you that in a second. So that was the creation of the electric starter, which is a big deal. Now, why he created that electric starter was, Chad, have you ever done a crank start engine before?
I have. It's kind of cool.
It's cool, but it was also actually pretty darn dangerous. What happened to his friend, why Henry Leland wanted to create the electric starter was because his friend was crank starting his car.
His friend was named One-Armed Jeff.
No.
Right?
No.
After that.
But that is funny. No. Well, he was, and this is actually sad. The engine backfired, and the crankshaft hit him in the chin, broke his jaw, and the guy later would eventually die of this. I know, right? So that was also interesting. This is going to be a little bit of a digression and a side point. When that happened, that was also during a time where they were using, there was the race or the war between gasoline, electric, and steam. And one of the things about a combustion engine, gasoline used combustion engine, was nobody liked a crank starter. So with that invention of Leland's, that also put a combustion engine in the front line, and here we are today. So interesting.
Turning the key is a lot easier than busting your jaw.
I know. Aiden's giving me the old wrap up. So I guess that means we're gonna go on a break, guys. All right, stay tuned to the Bad Blonde Radio Show. We are going to talk all about the start of Lincoln Motor Company, and it's pretty darn interesting, my friends.
Send us a text.
Right? Yeah, 882-5397.
I already forgot. You didn't talk about your sponsor.
Huh?
I ain't got none of that cheese yet, so.
Forgot all about that. Yeah, me neither.
So I have a point on Cadillac too. Is
anytime you have something to say, just raise your finger so I'll stop talking. Okay? Because you see I'll stop talking and then you don't, and then I'm like, huh?
Anyway, he took Cadillac and all that, and he wanted to show them off, so he sent 3 Cadillacs to the London Royal Automotive Club. Totally disassembled.
Cool.
And
then assembled them?
And then they just assembled them in front of him to show the interchangeability of parts. They just were all in a box or whatever.
Okay.
And then he got an award for that. He got the
super interesting guy.
The DeWar Trophy for excellence, and that started Cadillac's the standard world. So that was his interchangeability. Just sent a box of parts over to show him how easy it was to put together.
Okay, I'll do a recap of what we were discussing, and then I'll let you jump onto that.
And then from there we don't got nothing.
I have a lot, so don't worry. And just let me, literally, when you have something to say, let me know, because I just will keep on talking on. And I love that Oh, and I'm going to tell you, okay, so it's really, did you see why he ended up calling Lincoln Lincoln?
Because of Lincoln, Nebraska?
Abraham Lincoln was...
Because of Lincoln, Nebraska?
No.
I'm going to do that.
No, don't say that. People are going to...
Well, why do you think they call Lincoln, Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska?
Abraham Lincoln. What are you going to do today?
Work.
What are you working on?
Shop stuff, I guess. I don't know.
Jesus, that was not a long break.
Come on, Aiden. Yeah, just kidding.
Put on your headphones. All right, my friends. You are listening to the Bad Blonde Radio Show, and I am just assaulting your ears, talking about the history of Lincoln and its founder, Henry Leland. But first, I do want to mention a text we got from one of our listeners. His name is George. George says, today is a good day because he is going to be repairing a few items on his 67 Mustang today. And I hope he's doing it outside because it could not be a prettier day here in Corpus Christi, Texas. Right?
Could get a little hot working in your car outside.
You're probably right.
Anyway, the garage, George.
Yeah. Anybody want to text in? The text line is 882-5397. So text us because I like to say things out loud. Just keep it PG-13, right? Indeed. I had something I was about to say regarding that, and then it just left my little mind.
We were going to talk about...
No. I was going to say, this is the Bad Blonde Show brought to you by Competition Sounds. Thank you, Competition Sounds. That's what it was.
I wasn't going to say that. You said that.
I gotta write it down or else I'm going to forget. You know what I mean? That and every time I say the text line, I breathe an exhalation of relief that I got the number right. Anyways, to recap, guys, what we've been talking about is Henry Leland, the founder of both of America's most competitive luxury vehicles, Cadillac and Lincoln. We're mostly going to talk about Lincoln, but we've talked about how he started Cadillac was literally by using the defunct, or should I say the busted, the basically Henry Ford, one of his many ventures, he ran out of money. Henry Leland popped in there, saw that there was an opportunity to create a car with this manufacturing plant, took it over, thus creating the great vendetta between Henry Ford and Henry Leland. But now we're talking about Cadillac, which he started from that manufacturing plant. And Chad, you had a pretty cool piece of history regarding that.
Yeah, so Leland wanted to rebrand the Detroit Motor Company as a luxury automobile maker. That was his angle. And he also was real proud of his use of interchangeable parts and everything.
Smart guy.
So
smart.
To impress Europe and such, he sent 3 fully disassembled Cadillacs over to London to the Royal Automotive Club. Royal Automotive.
That is like a serious flex. When you think about a flex, that's a flex.
And then they were just boxed up. They took them apart and mixed up all the parts, and then they just built 3 cars out of all the parts that were there, and one part didn't have to go on this car.
Exactly.
They were interchangeable.
Yeah.
And that the British were very impressed.
The British were mighty impressed. Huh?
And they gave him the Dwyer Trophy for excellence, and that started the Cadillac model of the standard of the world.
Now, is the Dwyer any relation to the whiskey?
I have no idea.
I am Googling as we speak. That would be hilarious. I hope it is. Anyways, I should not allow myself to digress on that one. Okay, I'll look that up later. All right. So, Henry Leland, we've already talked about how he started Cadillac. He then sells Cadillac to General Motors in 1909 for $4.5 million, which was a very fair chunk of change at the time, guys. And he stayed on with the company for a bit of time, but would soon leave after arguing with William C. Durant about wartime procurement materials. And William C. Durant, that's like a whole other story. That's the guy that he was the brains behind creating General Motors, which at the time there had never been a car company made up of a bunch of different car companies, which now, right now, that is all you have for the most part, with the exception of, like, let's say Tesla and a few others. But William C. Durant was the guy that brought that. And he has a whole interesting story because he started General Motors and then he got booted out of General Motors and then they brought him back in. So interesting. Now, after that, it's around 1917, already left Cadillac. Henry Leland and his son are looking for something to do, and they secure a loan to start the Lincoln Motor Company, okay? And with that was a $10 million contract to create the Liberty aircraft engine. Okay, this is World War I time, and
V-12.
Exactly. Exactly.
Bringing liberty, one cylinder at a time.
One cylinder at a time. And okay, so interesting. Chad and I were just talking about this. Chad is going to attempt to make a bad joke about it, but I'm not going to let you.
Let me make it.
No, I'm taking it away before you can even do that. Try. So some of y'all might be curious, because I do like to look up the history behind some of these automotive manufacturers' names. Where did the name Lincoln arise from? Keep it to yourself, Chad.
Lincoln, Montana.
No.
Lincoln, Idaho. Lincoln, North Dakota.
You're distracting me.
I looked up every city that's named Lincoln.
No, it's not.
Abraham Lincoln?
Exactly. Exactly. Lincoln Motor Company is named after Abraham Lincoln, which was the first president Leland was able to vote for.
In
1894? Was that it?
That's when Columbus sailed Ocean Blue.
Shh. No, that's 1492.
Okay.
Wait, you Google that, because I'm going to get distracted. I'm not allowed to start Googling in the middle of the show, or else everything will be silent.
1864.
I had three of the four right. Anyways, Lincoln Motor Company would go on to assemble 6,500, that's 6,500, Liberty V12 engines by the end of World War I, before they concluded production. That's a lot of engines. That really is. Okay, and at that time, also Lincoln would employ 6,000 workers. So it was like a big production. It was really a big production, which makes it even more interesting and sad that in 1922, it became insolvent. Like, I don't really know how that, I don't know how you go from such success and such a large loan to being insolvent, right? You know who is, and when Lincoln Motor Company went bust, you know who was waiting in the murky waters to chomp?
Abraham Lincoln.
Okay, no, stop it.
Henry Ford.
It was Henry Ford. Old Henry Dandelion eating on the side of the road.
Leland even talks about it, and there's quotes of him as he didn't see himself as a businessman.
Yeah.
He saw himself as an engineer.
Yeah.
He liked building gears or trying to make an engine. So the business aspect of it really wasn't his strong suit.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why
I didn't.
Insolved.
Yes, exactly. So Henry Ford's like over there just like rubbing his little hands together, ready to put in a total cheapskate bid. And that's what he did, okay? And like I said, why does Henry Ford have this vendetta against Henry Leland? Well, one of Henry Ford's busted manufacturing plants, which clearly both of them didn't know how to handle business, right? Leland went in and created Cadillac. Dun, dun, dun. It's just the irony of him creating two of America's most competitive luxury vehicles is the best.
Yeah, Cadillac was purchased by General Motors, who
exactly
was a Ford
competitor. Exactly. So Ford goes in and this is a big manufacturing plant, guys. And he goes in and he offers $5 million for it. And the judge at the time that was ruling over this was like, hell no. Like, this thing is worth way more. That bid for a working manufacturing plant is ridiculous. And Henry Ford ended up paying $8 million for it. It's just, what are you going to say?
I wonder how much that is now.
It's a pretty sum.
Let me think. What that would be? 100 million or something?
I don't know. I do not know, but I know that was a lot of money at the time.
Actually, by now that was probably 700 trillion.
A lot of money.
The way we spending that money.
Yeah. So anyways, Henry Ford has Lincoln. And with the sale, Leland's son Wilfred stayed on. What an interesting name, Wilfred. Stayed on to help run the... Oh! Is the music playing? Does that mean? Sorry, Aiden, I was so into the story, I didn't even pay attention to your cues. I'm terrible at the radio. All right, guys, y'all stay tuned. We are going to talk about the history of Lincoln now that it is owned by Ford.
From now on, I just want to be super funny. That's all I'm going to be.
No, I'm talking all the time, and I don't want to talk all the time. So
I'm
you need to
super funny.
You've taken great notes, and you need to continue doing that because.
Yeah, but like I said, Lincoln is kind of a drag out one. It's like only history so much, so you can't like go off on your own so much.
It's super interesting history. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Next time we can do Gumball.
Oh, we should totally talk about Gumball. I'm game.
This is a lot of history that I don't.
What? It's super interesting.
It is, but it's
like so interesting. The fact that Ford was like coming back in because like it was like the roles were reversed. I find it hilarious. So, anyways. What else? So we did not have a texter. I made that up. I'm just gonna make it up until people actually text.
We need to get
Huh?
Tell them to text or call. I'll call in. Can I call into the show?
No. You don't. No. I don't like caller in. We don't know what they're gonna talk about. We don't know what kind of lunacy. Are you even putting these on?
Yeah. I just took them off.
Oh.
They look newer too. I'm not gonna leave black stuff on my ear.
Yeah, I know.
I'm gonna go back and I'll look at my ear. All this black stuff. I've been walking around talking to people. I'm like, what the hell?
These are nice.
Yeah, I need to order some.
Literally, I'll send you them.
I may even have some.
How would you have some and not even just...
For recording music and stuff.
But why wouldn't you just...
I'd have to look.
We're not on it. We are on it. Okay, well that's great. I felt like this, you might not be as interested in this topic as me, but I just felt like this last 30 minutes just flew by.
I mean, it's cool. It's just...
It's fascinating. So we'll start talking about with Ford owning it.
But like, of all the cars, like Lincoln has always been old person, you know. So I never have been that into it. Their older stuff's cool, but when I grew up,
what do we want to talk about next?
Lincoln.
No, I mean like next show.
Oh, I don't know.
What about the Impala?
What about Gumball Rally?
Oh yeah, okay, let's do Gumball Rally.
Then maybe something else. Gumball Rally's cool.
What
Especially
I'm trying
when
to...
they were running it.
Yeah.
Back in the day before it got, they were going crazy and it was not like it is now where the cops know and they're all paint their cars colors. But back when it was first going up, that'd be a cool show. That'd be fun to talk about.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to do is link whatever video I make is link it with what we talk about on the show because I'm too busy and I need to streamline.
I think Gumball would be a good show, but we can do whatever. It doesn't matter.
I think we do Gumball.
It'd be interesting.
Is our music on? Hello, my friends. You are listening listening to the Bad Blonde Radio Show on News Talk KEYS 1440 AM and 98.7 FM, brought to you by Competition Sounds. Thank you, Competition Sounds. And today is a good day. We are talking all about the history of Lincoln, which Chad's just been, during this whole break, he's been telling me Lincoln's a boring car, but to me, the history is totally fascinating. And if you have any yeah, go ahead.
I just said when I was growing up, like the Lincoln was like,
now it's a boring car. I mean, that's for sure. But the history behind it is so. Oh, really? Are we ageisting?
Well, I can't be an ageist anymore because I'm getting all old.
You are old.
So
yeah.
But when I was growing up, now if you look at them early on, like from 17 to 30, they were cool looking and way different. But
1917 is what he's talking about, guys.
Yeah, 1970, 1930.
Oh, totally.
And on, they had a much sportier look to them and stuff. Where
and let's include the 60s for the Continental Mark II. You know what I mean?
Well, when I grew up,
we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Okay, well, I was just pointing out when I grew up, Lincoln was kind of like an older person.
100%. I agree. But to me, the history is like absolutely super duper interesting. Guys, if you have any opinions about what we've been talking about, the whole vendetta between Henry Leland, the founder of Lincoln, and Cadillac, between Henry Ford, and so on, go ahead and text us at 882-5397 because I love getting text messages, please. Anyways, let's jump back on. Just to recap, we talked about how the vendetta between Ford and Leland started. We talked about how Leland started Cadillac and he ended up getting booted out of both Cadillac and Lincoln, and how Ford ended up buying Lincoln after poor old Henry didn't know how to manage the books well enough. It was a well-working manufacturing plan. He just wasn't a good businessman, as we talked about, but one heck of an engineer and a manufacturer. Now, when Lincoln sold to Ford, Leland's son Wilfred stayed on to help run the company. However, tensions, which is not shocking, like they literally don't like each other, tensions started running high, and within that same year, within months, Ford would ask the resignation of Wilfred, and thus again, the Leland's second car manufacturing company that they created, they were booted out of. Yet again. Poor things. Now let's go ahead and talk about some of the models that came, that were with Lincoln once it was under Ford, okay? So we had the Lincoln Model L, and those are just the cars of the 1930s were so pretty. They're so pretty. And the Lincoln Model L was a direct competitor with the like of Duesenberg, Packard, Peerless, and Pierce Arrow.
There's a lot of P's.
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad that you mentioned that because three of those were known as the 3 P's of luxury during the 30s, and that was Packard, Peerless, and Pierce Arrow. And I'm going to digress for a hot second. Now, Pierce Arrow actually started as a Victorian bird cage manufacturer.
Yeah, I can see.
Right?
I can see how that would tie over.
I love that. We'll have to dedicate a whole. Yeah, literally. Okay, I gotta get back. I can't help it. Anytime I see Pierce Arrow, my first thing is to think of that. And I read that little fact on a placard at the Revs Institute, which is a phenomenal museum in Naples, Florida, that I drove 6 hours round trip to get to from Orlando. So there's that. Always read your placards, guys. You might get some gold. Okay, so now interesting to note, while Lincoln was creating the Model L, they did not actually do yearly model changes, which was the practice among many American automotive manufacturers. They kind of kept the same, except making just a little bit of changes on the chassis and the powertrain, but for 10 years, they pretty much left that model untouched. And so the Model L was then replaced by the Model K. And now the big thing during the production of the Model K was the introduction of Lincoln's first multi-cylinder engine.
That's pretty funny. So they were just rocking. And what I was reading too is kind of they said some of the early Lincolns and Cadillacs just basically looked like a Model T pretty much.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And what kind of multi-cylinder engine would he go for? A Liberty 12.
Yeah.
Or a V12.
The V12, exactly,
Probably.
the V12.
Yeah.
Shortly after retiring their V8. And this also made Lincoln the first manufacturer in the world to produce vehicles exclusively with V12 engines.
So, a lot of cylinders.
How many cylinders is that?
Not sure.
12. For all my Spanish listeners out there, that is 12. Do you have any more to talk about those early models, or I'm going to fast forward us to the glorious Zephyr?
Yes, so let's go forward to the Zephyr.
Let's go to the Zephyr. All right, so the Zephyr, the Lincoln Zephyr, hit the scene in 1936, and it was kind of considered, it was a submark for Lincoln. And the first time Lincoln had two models available for consumers at one time. Go ahead. Nothing? Nothing? I just think it's interesting that things that were, like, that are so common now, as far as I guess strategies with automakers are now, where back then was like, oh God, they got two models available at one time. Unbelievable. So the Zephyr was a bit of a design leap, really. Okay, it had a prow style front fascia, and by prow I mean like that's like the prow of front end of a boat. Mm-hmm. So, and if anybody's out there by their computer and you don't know what the Zephyr looks like, go ahead and Google it. It was interesting. It really when you look at the Model L and the Model K, what a design leap that was. This is going to be a little bit of a digression too. Now, around this time, this is also the period that Chrysler had put out the Airflow. And the Chrysler Airflow was one of those perfect examples of consumers not knowing a good thing if it hit them in the face, all right? This was one of the first cars that actually had aerodynamics, and it just was ahead of its time and innovative in so many ways. So it's interesting that the Zephyr was different and succeeded, but the Chrysler Airflow absolutely didn't. And the Zephyr really was a total success. It sold like 9 times the amount of the previous model with 15,000 units. That's a lot of units.
It's a lot of units.
What does the word Zephyr mean? I know it means
the Greek
something.
god.
Are you making this up?
Yes.
God darn it.
I did not know.
Oh, I Googled it, guys. Zephyr means a soft, gentle breeze.
That was my second guess.
Also, it could also mean, which I don't even know, a fine cotton gingham, which is a fabric material. So that's confusing. I don't know about that. All right, so back to what we were talking about. So the Zephyr did really well, and on that, they continued that success with the Continental. And what is the Continental? No, we're not talking about the hotel room that was inhabited by Christopher Walken on SNL. I couldn't keep that in. That's what everybody thinks about or at least that's what I think about when I hear Continental, is that poor lady's gloved hand and Christopher Walken trying to keep her locked within his apartment. Anyways, it was a series of mid-sized and full-sized luxury vehicles produced by Lincoln, a division of Ford, right? The prototype Continental was actually, this is interesting how the Continental was exactly developed. It was just pretty much a whim of Edsel. The prototype Continental design was created by E.T. Bob Gregory, and it was inspired by Edsel Ford's European travels. Okay, so he goes off to Europe, plays around, comes back, and he says, "Hey, Bob, I would like this new car to be heavily based on the Lincoln Zephyr. All right, basically use the chassis of a Lincoln Zephyr and the engine, but let's make it look more European." You know what I mean?
Freaking Edsel Ford.
He was what? You have something against Edsel Ford? He was phenomenal.
I don't know, he's just like all rich and going around. He's like, "Hey, I'm gonna make me this car.
Well,
make me this car."
I think you can do that when you are literally the son of Henry Ford,
yeah,
and you're in charge. He was the president of Ford at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was. I know that he did not outlive his father, Henry Ford. He actually ended up dying of stomach cancer, Edsel Ford. But he was such a contrast to his father. We're going to talk about this for a second. Well, so we're going to talk about Edsel Ford for a second. So Edsel Ford was really such a contrast to his father, Henry Ford. You know, Henry was a kind of an odd pragmatist. He was all about design, engineering, didn't want options, wasn't into aesthetics, wasn't into art, Whereas Edsel Ford was very much kind of a creative artist. He was into making things look beautiful. He was the and I'm going to get ahead of myself. He was the one that gave the okay to create the Continental Mark II, which cost more to build than to sell. Ford literally lost money on it, but it was a beautiful car.
Yeah. The Mark II is one of my favorite.
We cannot jump ahead.
Oh,
I have an outline. We got to stick to it. All right, so we'll get to Edsel. But anyways, Edsel wanted this Continental to be created, all right? And the funny thing is that initial sketch for the Continental was created in 1 hour by Bob Gregory. Now, why did Edsel want this? He commissioned this coach built on top of the Lincoln Zephyr convertible. He developed it as a vacation vehicle that he could take down to Florida because he had a vacation home in Florida that I actually visited it. And he wanted it done by March of the year 1938 so he could show it off on his vacation. Like he could show all the rich people that went down to Florida at the time with this car, showboat it, and then sell it. And that was true. There were so many rich people hanging out in Florida. It's ridiculous. Back then in the 30s and 40s. It's a little different now in Florida, guys. But anyways, so like I said, Edsel was inspired by his European travels and wanted this European car to come out quickly. And he got it quickly. Literally the turnaround of the Continental prototype was 6 months. That is not a lot of time to make a car, guys. I'm just going to let you know. And it was introduced in the 1940s. It was 1941. No, I'm so sorry. 1940 was the first year it was introduced. He had it created, the prototype done in 1939. And just to paint a little picture of what was going on in 1940, because I like to do that, you know what I mean? Nazi Germany would begin the Blitzkrieg, which actually took out a lot of beloved European car manufacturers, right? Lots of war stuff going on. Captain America comic book was published in 1940. Hattie Mcdaniel was the first African-American woman to win an Academy Award for her performance in Gone with the Wind, which is one of my favorite books and movies. Franklin D. Roosevelt won his third term as a president. And also, most importantly, did you know Chuck Norris was born?
Chuck Norris doesn't get born.
You're right.
I don't know.
He was always there.
Yeah.
So anyways, that's the year that the first Continental comes out, 1940. And there are 404 of these elite cars built in the first year. Now, why? It would literally triple the next year, but why that was because all of the first year models were hand-hammered body panels. And then after that, they developed dies for machine pressing for the second year. I'm talking so much, my little throat is getting Aiden's telling me that he's giving me the wrap it up finger from the that didn't sound right from the box. All right, guys, stay tuned. We are going to talk all about the birth of the Continental. You are listening to the Bad Blonde Radio Show. Stay tuned.
Unfortunately, I didn't know.
I don't have the bad thing about not doing Beer 30 is now I don't have anything to what
I have some Coke.
You need to stop. What were you saying you wanted to talk about?
The bad thing on your thing is I didn't know where all you wanted to go for all this other stuff. Like I had the first part pretty good of kind of what you talked about. But...
Well, literally put your finger up if you want to say it instead of me. You know what I mean?
Well, right now I don't have anything. So, because you didn't have it in ally.
Sometimes you're allowed to venture away. Is it hot in here?
Yeah. It is. There isn't me.
No, it's hot as hell. So I'm gonna talk about the birth of the Continental, and then we'll go to the Mark II. How about that?
Oh, I want to talk about some
what?
Other.
What?
There's a 1961 that I got a joke for. I'm gonna make a joke. What is the worst place to drive in a convertible Lincoln Continental?
Where?
Dealey Plaza.
Oh! You can make that joke, but...
I'm going to.
It's not.
It's my half of the show. I'm the funny part of the show. Your facts, I'm fun.
I'm funny. You just don't do your research, so you can't say any facts.
I have looked.
And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop fake laughing if you're not going to fake laugh at me, okay?
I do fake laugh.
Fuck you. No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
That's a lie.
He.
What was I saying? And I was like, ah! And then I look at you to laugh and you don't laugh.
Don't watch TV.
I'm going to do it next. You're going to be like, you're going to say something you think is funny, and nobody's going to think it's funny because nobody's laughing.
Just do an awkward pause. Silence.
I'm going to do an awkward pause. Red door and I want it painted black. All right, my friends. You're listening to the Bad Blonde Radio Show on News Talk KEYS 1440 AM and 98.7 FM, Corpus Christi, Texas. That's right, sparkling city by the sea, although it should be Bay, just saying that. But we're already in too deep with that motto. And we are brought to you by Competition Sounds. Thank you, Competition Sounds. Appreciate it. Now, what we've been doing, folks, is talking about the history of Lincoln, which Chad pointed out this is a boring car, but I find it quite an interesting history. All right? We're talking about the founder, Henry Leland.
I said it was a vehicle that lacks excitement.
Well, that is true. I'm not going to mark you for that, but the history behind it is fascinating because it is created, and I've already covered this. And if you're just now tuning in and you want to hear the start of the show, you can find it on 1440 Keys, whatever the website is, and find it on SoundCloud. And you can also listen on the Bad Blonde YouTube that I have, which is just the Bad Blonde Cars YouTube. Make sure you put cars in, because if you put Bad Blonde into YouTube, something else is going to pop up, let me tell you.
You're going places.
Yeah.
Down the rabbit hole.
All right, I know. Okay, so we've, just to recap, we've talked about Henry Leland and how he started two of America's most competitive luxury vehicles, both Cadillac and Lincoln Motor Company, and both of those he actually got booted out of eventually, and how Henry Ford and him have had a ongoing vendetta. And right now in the history of Lincoln, we are now talking about its beginning of the Lincoln Continental. That's right. And all of this, the Lincoln Continental was done under Edsel Ford, which was Henry Ford's son. Edsel was the artist, in comparison to Henry Ford being the machinist. You know what I mean? They were quite a different breed. And the Continental all started because I keep trying to say Henry instead of Edsel. I need to stop doing that. Anyways. So Edsel went off, traveled around in Europe because, that's how rich people do. And he sees a bunch of these cars. He comes back and he wants it done. He basically wants to create the Continental, basically on the coach of a 1939 Lincoln Zephyr convertible. And they do it within 6 months. They have a turnaround. That's all done by Bob Gregory. And he creates this beautiful car. Edsel takes it on down to Florida because that's where all the other rich people are in the 1940s. It's 1939 technically, but it was introduced to the public in 1940. And they all go ape. They want to buy these cars. So I've caught you up, guys. Now, it is the second year that the Continental is out. And they have stopped creating the bodies by hand hammering them. And now they have dies for machine pressing. So they've jumped from 404 of these elite cars being built to 1,200. That's 3 times the amount.
Yeah, I think the dies help instead of hammering out the bodies over a buck.
Exactly, 110%. Well, that's also the same thing that happened with the Jaguar XK120. The first year they were it was all hand making, and then they were like, well, we got to speed this up for demand, and boom, same thing. Now, this was the car of the elite. All right, Hollywood icons, business elite, basically anybody rich, any heirs or tycoons, they were buying the Lincoln Continental. Frank Lloyd Wright owned one, and that guy was kind of an expert at beauty. So there's a compliment right there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Now, Chad, do you want to tell your joke, or should I continue?
Oh, God, I'm not ready to just yet.
All right, Chad has a despicable joke, guys, just so you know, I'm preparing you. Okay, so now this is how we get the story. There is a feature that when somebody looks at a Continental, they're like, that is a Continental. And I'm going to tell you how this even came about, because it wasn't even on purpose, really. Now, there wasn't room within the trunk to store a spare tire. And you know what they did?
They stuck it on the boot.
On the boot, yes, they did. They mounted it. That's how we arrived at the signature rear-mounted Continental spare tire feature. They just ran out of time. They ran out of space, and they were like, you know what? Let's just pop it on the back. Let's pop it on the boot.
And it's not like a Ford Bronco with the tire just hanging out the back, you know.
No,
it's covered, and it looks pretty.
It's classy, and I mean, that's what we've deemed it, the classiest thing ever, right? So, side note, this was interesting. So, this while this rear-mounted spare tire was disappearing on American cars, this was very much a European thing. The externally mounted covered spare tire remained a very big feature in European cars. This was something at that time. There was something disappearing on American cars, so that was a little bit of a risque decision. Now, this is a fun fact, and you know, everybody listening knows I like to share fun facts. You know, I probably shouldn't whisper into the microphone, but it's going to be a hard habit to break. All right, fun fact. In 1951, the New York Museum of Modern Art recognized the Lincoln Continental as an example of excellence, as a piece, as a work of art.
And
right?
You know the worst place to drive around in a convertible Lincoln Continental is?
No, I do not know.
Dealey Plaza.
Bum, bum, shh. I told Chad I'm not going to fake laugh at any of his jokes anymore.
It's not that funny either.
Guys, if you didn't catch that, and if there might be folks listening on that doesn't know, Chad, do you want to explain where that joke revolves?
Well, actually, I shouldn't make fun of.
Was he even driving? Wait, what? I thought he was driving he was in a Cadillac Fleetwood.
No, he was in a 61 Lincoln Continental.
With
stretch convertible, not the normal. They took the 4-door and converted it into a convertible.
How interesting.
Yes.
That is interesting. So we only have like 5 more minutes left in the show. I don't know if that's enough time to cover, because we're gonna fast forward and cover the Mark IV. I'm not even done with the Continental right now. So okay, well, I'm not even done with the first generation Continental. So I'll backtrack a little bit. Okay. So in the 1941 model year, there were only 850 created, and only 200 are still in existence. Not a lot. And what powered that first generation beauty is 292, why can't I think of this? Cubic inch displacement? Am I saying it right?
Mm-hmm.
I've had coffee. I should be able to talk. You know what I mean? L-head V12, capable 120 horsepower with a 3-speed manual transmission. So does George still have his 1941 Lincoln, really?
I believe so. Yeah,
I want to make a video on that.
And he also
doesn't he have a what is that other one? Is that the L Model L?
I don't know.
We're gonna have to have George on the radio show to talk about his Lincolns and his story behind the Apollo.
Oh yeah, that'd be a good show.
It would really be a good show. I need to remember that. We need to reach out to them. Anyways, all right, guys. So now we're going to fast forward. And I just feel wrong because I know I only have like 3 minutes to talk about this. But we'll do it, and that's fine. Okay? We'll just knock into it. The Continental Mark II was introduced, and that's right, I fast forwarded. Introduced in 1956. Now, this was the flagship for Ford. And it was kind of confusing because it wasn't exactly slotted as a Lincoln at the time. It was supposed to be a Mark above Lincoln, but within like that same year, it would be integrated into Lincoln, which is super confusing. And it's still confusing because people want to call it the Lincoln Continental Mark II. What does
Mark mean?
It's like a line. You know what I mean?
Nope.
And it's spelled where you want to say Marquee, but you don't. Because that's got me a few times. So the Mark II is just an exquisitely beautiful car. It's a 2-door hardtop, just a great designed car. It's beautiful, and it broke a lot of styling precedents at the time, frankly. While everything else popping out in America, and it's during its day, was all chromed out, tail fins up to the moon, this was a design that was actually sleek and minimal, yet impacting. I actually have a few videos covering, if nobody knows what a Mark II looks like, go ahead and go onto the Bad Blonde YouTube, look it up. I have a couple of Mark IIs on there from my different visits to the Monorail Car Week, and it's pretty cool. My voice is already, I'm talking so much, my little voice is already good and a little janky. So anyways, the Mark II was mainly hand-built, and at the time it was the most expensive car ever produced by an American automaker. Serious. It literally rivaled the Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud in price. And this is the craziest thing, with each one, Ford actually lost money with it.
That's not a good business plan.
That's not what you want to do. All right, guys, I'm sorry. I should have talked faster because we are already out of time and I didn't get to talk about the Mark II as much as I wanted. So that's okay. That's how it goes on the show, on the Bad Blonde radio show that you can listen to every Saturday at 10 a.m. on News Talk KUYS, 1440 a.m. and 98.7 FM.
See ya.
Peace. All right. Good show. Good show.
Shoulders.
Huh? What?
My shoulders hurt a little bit.
Oh, dear God.
Carrying the load.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's why I said it's hard to go on all that with me because like there's so much little fact stuff that it's hard for me to research that and you to talk about that or where you're going. So that's why Lincoln can be difficult. You know what I'm saying?
You have a lot of criticism?
I'm not
without a lot of actual.
I have like 4
I was gonna say.
I have 4 pages of notes, but like to go just on the history of all of that is difficult.
It is.
For me to go.
So anyways, what do we want to do the next show on?
I don't know. I think the Gun Rally would be fun.